My mom and stepdad beat me with a belt for refusing to serve his son like a maid. She said, "He's the king. You clean his toilet." I escaped with nothing but a broken arm and $1 in my pocket. The belt whistled in the air before hitting my back. I lay on the cold kitchen floor, trying to cover my head with my hands. My right arm was no longer obedient. Something cracked when my stepfather grabbed my wrist and yanked it down. "Have you gone completely stupid?" Gerard swung again. His face was red with rage. The veins in his neck bulged. "In my house, you will do what I say." Mom stood at the door. Nancy McPherson was once Nancy Hendricks, my mother, who read me bedtime stories and baked me chocolate chip cookies. Now, she was Mrs. Collins, and all I could see in her eyes was coldness. "Mom," I whispered through my tears, "don't you dare talk to her." Gerard hit me again. "You ungrateful little bitch! You live in my house, eat my food, and you can't fulfill a simple request. A simple request. To clean up Tyler's vomit from the toilet after his next drink. To clean the floor where he and his friends have set up a pigsty. To clean the toilet they shit on during their royal party." It all started 6 years ago. Dad died on a construction site. He fell from a scaffolding. He was only 42. I remember that call. My mom dropped the phone and couldn't say a word for a long time. The insurance barely covered the funeral. The money my father had saved for my education was enough for 3 months of rent. My mom cried for months. She loved Dad so much. They met in high school and got married right after graduation. I was their only child, worn out after years of trying. Dad called me Princess, carried me around on his shoulders, taught me to play baseball. And now he was gone. At 16, I was trying to keep everything together. I cooked, cleaned, worked part-time in a cafe after school. I brought home tips $20 to $30. My mom would take them with gratitude and shame in her eyes. "It's only temporary, dear," she would say. "I'll find a job. Everything will get better." But she did not find a job. 20 years of housewife didn't add weight to her resume. Depression sucked her strength. She could lie in bed for days, staring at the ceiling. Then, Gerard appeared. He came to look at the leaking roof. A neighbor had recommended his company. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with gray hair on his temples and the confidence of a successful man. "Don't worry, Mrs. Hendricks," he said, inspecting the damaged beams. "We'll fix it all, and inexpensively for such a lovely woman." Mom smiled for the first time in months. Gerard started coming more often. He would come to fix a leak or adjust the door. He always found an excuse. He would bring flowers, candy, invite my mom for coffee. She refused at first. "What will people say? It's not even a year old yet." But he was persistent. "Your husband would want you to be happy," he would say, and my mother would melt. They started dating. Gerard took her to restaurants, movies, and concerts. He bought her expensive gifts, earrings, bracelets, perfume. Mom started wearing makeup again, buying new dresses. Life returned to her eyes. "He's a good man, Shannon," she would say, twisting her blonde hair around her finger. "We need stability. You don't want to live in this shithole for the rest of your life, do you?" I wanted to tell her that it wasn't a hole. It was our home. That Dad built that gazebo in the backyard with his own hands. That there are memories in every corner. But she remained silent. Mom was happy for the first time in a long time. The wedding took place a year after my father's death. a modest ceremony at City Hall, a few relatives, a simple dress from a department store. Gerard seemed normal, a little rude, but not angry. He promised to treat me like his own daughter. "We're family now," he said, putting a heavy hand on my shoulder. "And my son Tyler is your brother." Tyler was 3 years younger than me, a handsome boy with his dad's brown eyes and the confidence of a man who had never known anything to fail. At the wedding, he lazily looked me up and down and yawned. We moved to Gerard's house, a 2-story house with a large garage and a swimming pool in the backyard. The neighborhood was better than ours, the school more prestigious. I had my own room, much bigger than the old one, with a private bath. "See how well everything turned out?" Mom beamed as she hung the curtains in the new bedroom. "Gerard takes such good care of us." The first months were tolerable. Gerard bought the groceries, paid for everything they needed. He took my mom out of town on weekends. He even offered to pay for my driving lessons. I started to think that maybe everything would be fine. But gradually, everything changed. At first, it was small things. Tyler took my things without asking. I once found my Walkman, CDs, even my diary in his room. When I complained to Gerard, he waved his hand. "Boys will be boys. Don't be such a miser." Then the remarks began, about my clothes, too revealing, about my makeup, like a whore, about my friends, some kind of a scum. My mom was silent or played along. "Gerard is just worried about you," she would justify. "He's not your own father. He doesn't know how to do things right." The right thing started with household chores. "Shannon, clean Tyler's room," my mom said one day. "Why can't he do it himself?" "Don't argue. He's studying for his exams." Exams, soccer practice, meeting friends. Tyler always had more important things to do. And I was cleaning his stinky socks, changing his bed, dusting him. When I refused, Gerard would scream and my mom would look at me pleadingly. "Gerard works hard to provide for us. The least we can do is help out around the house." We did. But for some reason, only I helped. My mom cooked Gerard's favorite dishes, pleased him, laughed at his stupid jokes. She turned into a shadow of her former self. And when he yelled at me for not adding enough salt to the soup or for not ironing my shirt properly, she would remain silent or say, "You need to be more careful, daughter." My daughter. This word became as bitter as wormwood. When I turned 18, I wanted to go to college. A local community college, nothing special. I applied, even received a partial scholarship for my academic performance. "Why do you want to go to college?" Gerard tore up the acceptance letter right there at the dinner table. Pieces of paper fell into my soup bowl. "You'll find a job as a waitress, get married." "I'm not going to pay for your whims." "But the scholarship will cover most of it." If he said no, then no. And don't you dare raise your voice to me. "Mom!" But she just looked down, swallowing her mashed potatoes. Every year, it got worse. I turned into a free servant. I got up at 6 to make breakfast. Eggs and bacon for Gerard, pancakes for Tyler, toast for Mom. I cleaned the whole house, vacuumed, mopped floors, cleaned bathrooms. I washed mountains of clothes. I cooked lunch and dinner. And Tyler was lying on the couch, playing video games. A PlayStation that my father had bought for his birthday. A huge TV. The latest games. "Bring a beer," he would say without looking up from the screen. "Get it yourself." "Dad, Shannon's being naughty again," Gerard would yell, threatening to throw her out. "Ungrateful animal." I give you a roof over your head, and you can't bring the boy a beer? My mom would look at me pleadingly, and I would go to the kitchen. I would bring him beer, chips, whatever he wanted. Royal service for His Highness Tyler. The worst part was how my mom had changed. Once warm and loving, now she seemed afraid of me. She avoided conversations, did not look me in the eye. She gave all her tenderness to Tyler, caressing him, calling him sunshine, buying him gifts. He's just a kid, she would justify herself when I asked why a 19-year-old boy couldn't make his own bed. A child? Mom, he's 3 years younger than me. Don't be jealous, Shannon. It's not nice. Jealousy. I work 2 jobs. In the morning in a bakery, in the evening in a supermarket. I gave all my money to Gerard for the household. I kept a penny for myself for the most necessary things. And Tyler got everything he wanted. New sneakers, watches, money for entertainment. Last week was the last straw. My parents went to Gerard's relatives in a neighboring state for the weekend. Some kind of family holiday. I begged my mom to take me, but she refused. Someone has to take care of the house. And Tyler. He's a big boy. He can take care of himself. Don't argue. It's been decided to look after. I was locked in my room, listening to drunken laughter and music. Tyler had thrown a party, invited a dozen friends. The bass was pounding, the glass was breaking, and drunken shouts were heard. At 3 in the morning, everything quieted down. In the morning, I went out and saw the ruin. Empty bottles everywhere. On the floor, tables, even in flower pots. Cigarette butts on the carpet. Spilled beer, crushed chips, some sticky spots of unknown origin. And in the toilet. It stank so bad that my eyes watered. Vomit everywhere. On the floor, walls, even on the ceiling. How they did it is a mystery. The toilet was clogged. The water was overflowing. Clean it up. Tyler stood in the doorway, holding his head. His eyes were red, his t-shirt stained. And don't you dare complain to your father. Clean up your own puke. What did you say? What I heard. I'm not your maid. You made the mess, you clean it up. He straightened up, squinted his eyes. You're forgetting yourself. In this house, I am the son of the owner. And who are you? You are nothing. You live off us, eat our food. Dad's right. You're an ungrateful bitch. Call me whatever you want. I'm not cleaning the toilet. I turned around and left. I heard him take out his phone and dial a number. Dad? Shannon's completely out of control here. My parents arrived an hour later. They must have driven like crazy. Gerard burst into the house like a hurricane, his mom trailing behind. Where is she? I sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee. I tried to calm down, to prepare for the scandal. Before I could get up, he grabbed my arm and pulled me to the floor. You refuse to fulfill my son's request. It's not a request. He set up a pigsty. Let him do it himself. The first blow of the belt knocked the air out of me. I fell to my knees trying to crawl away, but he grabbed my hair and pulled me back. Gerard! Mom stood in the doorway, pale as chalk. Shut up! Your daughter is completely out of control. It's time to teach her a lesson. He beat me methodically, with pleasure. On my back, on my legs, on my arms, which I tried to defend myself with. The leather belt whistled in the air, leaving burning marks. When I tried to stand up, he grabbed my wrist and pulled. Something crunched and pain pierced my arm. Stop it! I screamed. Mom, stop him! Mom! She came closer. I saw her face, cold, distant, alien. There was no pity in her eyes, only irritation. "It's your own fault," she said quietly. "Tyler is my husband's son. He is the king in this house. And me," I whispered through my tears, "I am your daughter. And you?" She smiled crookedly. "Clean his toilet." Something broke inside me. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't beg. I lay on the cold floor, watching my mother walk away without looking back. The woman who gave birth to me, raised me, loved me, or so I thought. "I hope you've learned your lesson." Gerard threw the belt on the table. "Now get up and start cleaning up. I want everything sparkling by tonight." They went upstairs. I could hear their voices. Gerard was telling me something, and my mom was following along. Then Tyler turned on the music in his room. I slowly got up, holding the table with my left hand. My right hand hung like a whip. Every movement responded with a burning pain. It must be broken. My back burned, my shirt stuck to the wounds. I went up to my room. Each step was difficult. I took my father's old gym bag, the only thing left of his belongings. She threw in jeans, 2 t-shirts, and underwear. I also threw in a toothbrush, a photo of her father smiling, young, alive. I found $1 in the desk drawer. One crumpled dollar was all I had. Gerard took the rest of the money from his part-time jobs, for the farm. He said he was putting it into a savings account for me. But he was lying, of course. I went downstairs. Tyler was already lying on the couch again, holding an ice pack on his head. "Where are you going?" "The toilet won't clean itself." I didn't answer. I opened the door and walked out. My right arm was throbbing with pain, and traces of the belt burned on my back. I had $1 in my pocket. Behind me were 22 years of life that had just ended. I looked back at the house one last time. My mom was standing in the window of the second floor. Our eyes met for a moment. I saw in her eyes nothing. Emptiness. She turned away and pulled the curtains. I went down the street, not knowing where I was going. I knew only one thing. There was no turning back. Not ever. The first night was the worst. I walked through the city as far as my legs would carry me, my right arm throbbing with pain with every step. By evening, I reached Roosevelt Park, the same place where my father used to take me to feed the ducks. I found a bench under a large oak tree and curled up on the cold wood. The March wind pierced through me. I shivered in my thin jacket, clutching my sports bag to my chest. My back was burning from the wounds. My right hand was swollen, and my fingers would not bend. Every breath I took was met with pain in my ribs. At 3 in the morning, it started to rain. At first, it was light, then heavier. I hid under the roof of a public toilet, but it stank of urine and vomit. It reminded me of Tyler's mess, and I threw up. I stayed under a tree until morning, soaking wet. When it dawned, I saw my reflection in a puddle. Pale face, bruises under my eyes, wet hair stuck to my head. I looked like a homeless person. Actually, I was now. I had to do something about my arm. The pain was becoming unbearable. I remembered the free clinic on Jefferson Street. I had seen the sign when I worked at the supermarket. It took her an hour to get there, holding her arm to her chest. The clinic opened at 8. I was third in line. An elderly man with a cough and a woman with a child were sitting in front of me. The nurse at the reception looked at me with a tired look. "What happened?" "I fell. From the ladder. I think it's broken." She didn't believe me, but didn't say anything. She gave me a form to fill out. Name? Shannon Martinez. The first thing that came to mind. Address? I made it up. Social security number? She shook her head. She waited for 3 hours. Finally, they called me. The doctor, a gray-haired woman in her 50s, examined her arm and sent it for an X-ray. The old machine hummed and clicked. Then there was more waiting. Fracture of the radius. The doctor showed me the picture. You need a plaster cast. And what's that on your back? I was silent. She lifted my shirt and whistled. Child, who did this to you? I said I fell down a ladder. There are no such marks from a ladder. It's a belt. We should report it to the police. No, I refused. Please, just help me with my arm. She looked at me for a long time, then sighed. She applied the cast in silence, treated the wounds on my back. She gave me pain pills and antibiotics. Come back in a week for a bandage. And think about the police. Whoever did this. Thank you. I interrupted and walked out without listening. The cast made it a little easier, but now my right arm was completely useless. How to work? $1 in my pocket was all I had. My stomach was twisting from hunger. The last time I ate was yesterday morning. I wandered around the city looking for work. Cafes, restaurants, shops. Everywhere they looked at the cast and shook their heads. Sorry, we need someone full-time. You can't work with such an injury. Come back when you get better. By the evening, my legs were pounding and my head was spinning. Near the Chista Villa car wash, I saw an ad. Workers are needed. She went inside. A girl my age with bright pink hair was sitting behind the desk. What do you need? She asked, blowing a bubble of gum. I'm looking for a job, I saw an ad. With that arm? The manager won't hire you. Please, I can work with my left. I'll do anything. She looked me up and down. Wet clothes, muddy shoes, sports bag. You ran away from home? I nodded. There was no point in lying. How old are you? 22. Do you have a place to live? I shook my head. She sighed, adjusted her nose earring. I'm Megan. Listen, the manager isn't here right now, but there's a senior mechanic, Carlos. He sometimes hires people to do odd jobs. Do you want me to talk to him? Yes. Please. She went to the garage and returned 5 minutes later with a man of about 45. He was a Latino, short, stocky, with hands covered in engine oil. He looked me over with a penetrating gaze. Megan says you need a job. Yes, sir. I'll do whatever you want. With one hand? What can you do? Cleaning, washing, sorting. I'm a quick study. He scratched the back of his head, leaving an oily trail. $5 an hour, cash at the end of the day. Wipe down the cars after washing. Clean the place, put the tools away. If you can do it, you can stay. If not, I'm sorry. Do you agree? Yes. Thank you. You start tomorrow at 6 in the morning. Don't be late. He left. Megan winked at me. Lucky you. Carlos rarely takes on new guys. Listen, if you don't have a place to sleep, I have a spare couch. For a couple of nights. I almost cried with gratitude. Megan's apartment was tiny. A studio in an old house, a kitchen combined with a room, a bathroom the size of a closet. But it was warm and dry. The couch was squashed and stained, but after a park bench, it was a luxury. The toilet is over there. She waved her hand. Food is in the fridge. Take whatever you want. Just don't touch the beer. It hurts your hands. I ate half a jar of peanut butter and 3 slices of bread. My stomach was cramping from so much food after a day of fasting. I took a shower. Hot water is not allowed on the cast, so I had to wash in halves. But washing off the dirt and sweat was a blessing. Megan came home late, a little drunk. She fell on the bed in her clothes. The guy dumped me, she mumbled into the pillow. He said he loved me, but he's with that bitch, Tiffany. All men are assholes. I was silent. What could I say? The next morning, I woke up at 5. My body hurt, but it was bearable. I quietly left, leaving a note of gratitude. It took me 20 minutes to get to the car wash. Carlos was already there, fiddling with the compressor. Good job, you're on time. See those buckets? Fill them with water, add detergent. It's on the shelf over there. Then take the rags and start wiping the cars after washing. Be careful. Customers don't like streaks. Working with one hand was hell. The buckets were heavy, and the water splashed on my clothes. Wiping the cars was even worse. You have to reach the roof, the windshield, every detail. The plaster was in the way. My back was aching, but I gritted my teeth and worked. The first car was a black sedan. The second was a pickup truck. The third was a minivan with child seats. By lunchtime, I had wiped down 12 cars, cleaned the office, and put the tools in the garage. Not bad. Carlos held out $30. Same time tomorrow. $30. A fortune. I bought a sandwich at the cheapest place and ate it in the park. I had 27 left. What should I spend it on? Housing is the most important thing. Megan let me stay for another week, but I had to find something permanent. I went through a dozen ads. Everywhere was expensive or required a deposit. Finally, she found a room in the basement of an old house. $200 a month, no deposit. The landlady, an elderly Polish woman, Mrs. Kowalska, asked her questions for a long time and shook her head. A young girl, alone, without family. You don't drink? You won't bring boys? No, I swear. I just work and sleep. Okay, we'll try. But make sure it's quiet and without any problems. The room was gloomy. A small window under the ceiling, damp walls, one bed and a chair. A shared bathroom for 3 rooms. But it was my own. I paid $200, all my savings for the week, and felt incredibly relieved. Working at the car wash became a routine. Get up at 5, walk 40 minutes, work 12 hours. Wiping cars, washing floors, cleaning toilets, unloading deliveries. $5 an hour was a pittance, but it was enough to buy food and put a roof over our heads. Carlos turned out to be a good man. He saw how hard I was working and started to give me more tasks. He taught me how to change the oil, check the tire pressure, and the basics of mechanics. "You're a smart girl," he said, watching me twist the filter with my left hand. "Why do you work at a car wash?" I shrugged my shoulders. A month later, the cast came off. My arm was weak, but it worked. Now I could work faster, take extra shifts. I saved every cent. One evening, Carlos called me to the office. There were brochures on the table. "Community college," he said. "Paralegal evening courses. My daughter graduated and now works in a law firm. Good money, clean work." I can't afford it. There are assistance programs, loans, grants. You're smart, you'll manage. You don't want to wipe cars all your life, do you? Of course I didn't, but college seemed like an unattainable dream. Nevertheless, I took the brochures and started studying. Evening classes. You can work during the day. The program is 2 years long. The cost is high, but with a loan and grants, it is possible. I applied, not hoping for success. But a month later, I received a letter. I was accepted, with a partial grant for training. I cried with joy right in my basement room. The first day of classes was in September. I was terribly nervous. An old secondhand backpack, cheap notebooks, pens from a car wash. I felt like a stranger among the students. They were younger, more confident, from normal families. But when the professor began a lecture on the basics of law, everything else disappeared. I eagerly absorbed every word: the Constitution, laws, human rights, a world where there is justice and order, where people cannot be beaten with a belt for refusing to clean up someone else's vomit. The schedule became hellish. Car wash from 6 in the morning to 5 in the evening. Quick shower, change, run to class from 6 to 10. Home, homework until 1 in the morning. 5 hours of sleep, and then it was back to square one. There were no days off. On Saturdays and Sundays, I took extra shifts to pay for housing and food. I ate mostly peanut butter and bread. She lost weight and developed dark circles under her eyes. Megan sometimes brought leftovers from home: cold pizza, Chinese food. We became friends. She was the only one who knew my story. "Why don't you go to your mother?" she asked me once. Maybe she has come to her senses? She made her choice, I answered. Now I'm making mine. There was no news from my family. Sometimes I caught myself thinking, maybe my mom is looking for me. Is she worried? But I remembered her cold gaze, her words about the king and the toilet, and the pain returned. The winter was hard. The basement room was poorly heated. I slept in my coat and hat. There was often no hot water. But I stubbornly went forward. I passed my first exams with flying colors. Professor Davis recognized my work on criminal law. "Excellent analysis, Miss Martinez. You have a knack for law." Martinez. I got used to the new name, the new me. Shannon Martinez is a student, a future paralegal, not a servant, not a nobody, a person who builds her life with her own hands. In the spring, Carlos raised my salary to $7. He said I was the best worker he'd had in years. This allowed me to rent a slightly better room, with a normal window and heating. The move was a celebration. Megan helped me move my few belongings. We drank cheap wine from plastic cups. "To a new life," my friend toasted. "To a new life," I repeated. The spring sun was shining outside the window. My arm no longer hurt. Only thin white scars remained on my back, and somewhere there, in another life, my mom and stepdad and Tyler were living their royal lives, and I lived mine. Hard, hungry, cold, but mine. And that was the most important thing. 4 years, 1,460 days since that March morning when I left with $1 and a broken arm. Sometimes it seemed like yesterday, sometimes like an eternity. May 2003 was a hot month. I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment, not a basement room anymore, but a normal one-room apartment on the 3rd floor. I was looking at a woman in a second-hand business suit. It was dark blue, a little big in the shoulders, but it looked decent. There was a certificate on the desk. Shannon Martinez has successfully completed the parallelism training program. 2 years of study, sleepless nights, thousands of pages of laws and precedents. The average score was 3 9/10 out of 4. "You should be proud of yourself," Professor Davis said at the graduation ceremony. "Not everyone can keep up with this pace." Out of 40 students who started the program, 23 graduated. I was the second best student. I could have been the first. But Jason Chen didn't work 12-hour days at the car wash. Carlos organized a celebration right in the garage. He brought a cake with the words, "Congratulations, future lawyer," and champagne. The entire car wash team gathered. Mechanics, washers, even the stern manager Bob was smiling. "I knew you'd go far." Carlos gave me a fatherly hug. "Just don't forget us when you become rich and famous." Rich. I smiled bitterly as I counted my savings. $2,300 was all I had managed to save in 4 years. Pay at the car wash, part-time waitressing on weekends, tutoring freshmen. Every cent was saved. But it's not enough. You need much more to start your own practice. Office rent, equipment, insurance, license fees, at least $7,000 to get started. Without this, I would have to go to work for a large firm for a pittance, to be an errand girl for years to come. I was looking at options for weeks. A bank loan? They rejected me because I had no credit history. Borrow from friends? Megan was barely making ends meet on her own. Carlos would have helped, but he couldn't. His daughter was applying to university. There was only one option left. The one I'd been trying not to think about for 4 years. My mom. I knew the address. The same one. Sometimes, in moments of weakness, I would drive by on the bus. The house looked the same. A white picket fence, a manicured lawn, a pool in the backyard, Gerard's pickup truck in the driveway. I spent a week getting ready. I rehearsed my speech in the mirror. Mom, I graduated from college. I need help to start my career. It's a loan. I'll pay it back with interest. Calmly, businesslike, without emotion. Finally, on a Saturday morning, I put on my best suit, took a folder with documents, and left. The bus took me 40 minutes to get there. Another neighborhood, another life. I went out a block away and walked. My heart was pounding. My palms were sweating. What am I doing? Why did I come here? But my legs carried me forward. Here is the familiar street, house number 47. The gate creaked open as before. She rang the bell. Silence. She rang again. Footsteps were heard. The door opened. It was my mom. She had aged in 4 years. Wrinkles around her eyes, gray hair, but still the same. Blue eyes of a grandfather, thin lips, sharp cheekbones. She was dressed in a home robe and holding a cup of coffee. She looked at me for a second, not recognizing me. Then her eyes widened. Shannon? Hi, Mom. She stood there, holding the door jamb. So many emotions flashed across her face. Surprise, fear, something like joy. But then it all disappeared, and the usual mask remained. What are you doing here? Can I come in? I need to talk to you. Gerard's home, she said quietly, looking around. I won't be long. Please. She hesitated, then backed away. I walked into the familiar hall. Nothing had changed. The same furniture, paintings, the smell of lemon polish. Only there were no photos of me. They had taken them all away. Who is it? Gerard's voice from the living room. A neighbor, asking about seedlings. Mom lied. We went into the kitchen, the same kitchen where I was beaten with a belt 4 years ago, the tiles on the floor where I had been lying, the table where Gerard had thrown the belt. Coffee? Mom asked automatically. No, thanks. We sat down across from each other. She held the cup with both hands, not looking at me. You've lost weight, she finally said. I work a lot. Where do you live? In the city. I rent an apartment. Are you married? No. Silence. She spun her cup. I clutched the folder. Why did you come here? I asked her directly. I took a deep breath. Time for a prepared speech. I graduated from college. The paralegal program. Here's the certificate. I took out the document and put it on the table. She didn't look at it. I want to open my own practice. A small one, specializing in family law, helping people. Why would I want to do that? She interrupted. I need a loan. $7,000 to get started. Office rent, equipment, license. I'll pay it back in 2 years, with interest. We can make it official. I've prepared a contract. The living room door slammed. Heavy footsteps. Gerard appeared in the doorway, gaunt over the years, his face red, his eyes small. What the hell? Nancy, you said. He saw me. He froze for a second, then his face twisted. You! What the hell are you doing here? Gerard! Mom started. Shut up. We thought you were drunk somewhere or in jail. Why are you here? Do you need money? He always knew how to hit where it hurt. It's a business offer. I tried to sound calm. A loan with interest? A loan! He laughed. Do you hear me, Nancy? Your daughter wants a loan. For what? A dose? I graduated from college. I'm working part-time. Part-time. He came closer, reeking of beer, even though it was only 10 in the morning. You wiped someone's ass in the office and think you're a big deal? How much do you want? $7,000. $7,000! Nancy, your junkie girlfriend wants $7,000. I'm not a junkie. Here are my papers. My certificates. He knocked the folder out of my hands. The papers flew across the floor. A certificate? References? A business plan? I don't give a shit about your papers. You left this house like the last ungrateful bitch. For 4 years, not a word from you. And now you come begging for money? Gerard, maybe we'll listen. Mom tried to stand up. Sit down, he barked, and she sat down. We're not going to listen to anything. That little whore won't get a cent from us. I'll pay you back. She will. We know how she is. She'll take the money and disappear, or she'll spend it on drugs and die in some stinking hole. I looked at my mom. She was sitting with her eyes down, clutching a cup. Mom! Don't you dare talk to her! Gerard stepped between us. You're not her daughter anymore. You're nothing. Zero, bastard. That's enough. I started to pick up the papers from the floor. My hands were shaking, but my voice was firm. I understand. Good. Now get out of my house. I gathered the documents and put them in a folder. I got up and straightened my suit. I looked at my mom one last time. I thought maybe something had changed in 4 years. I was wrong. She raised her eyes. There was pain and shame in them, but she was silent. She was always silent. I'm sorry, she whispered, barely audible. For what? For letting you beat me with a belt? For choosing him over me? For being nothing to you? Shannon. No. I held up a hand. Don't. I realized that 4 years ago, I was just stupid thinking, whatever. I started for the door. Gerard followed to make sure I was leaving. And don't come here again. If I see you, I'll call the police. In the lobby, I ran into Tyler. 23 years old, but he looked 30. Blurry, bags under his eyes, beer belly. Oh, look who's back, he grinned. The maid. She didn't answer. She opened the door, stepped out into the hot May morning. The door slammed behind her. She heard Gerard yelling at her mom, but she couldn't make out the words. She walked to the bus stop and sat down on a bench. The folder was on my lap. All my achievements, plans, dreams, $7,000. For them, it was nothing. Gerard spends that much on his pickup truck. Tyler drinks that much in a month. But for me, it's an unattainable amount. I'd have to start from scratch again, looking for a job in a big firm, being a nobody among hundreds of others like me. Years of lost opportunities. The bus arrived in 20 minutes. I sat by the window and watched the familiar streets go by. Here is the park where my father taught me to ride a bike. Here is the school where I was an excellent student. Here is the coffee shop where I worked as a waitress. Everything is in the past. My mom made her choice 4 years ago. I made mine too. I just sometimes forgot about it. Let hope creep into my heart. I won't forget anymore. There is no family. There is only me, my education, and $2,300 in savings. It's not enough for my own practice, but it's enough to get started. I arrived home at 2 o'clock. I took off my suit and put on jeans and a t-shirt. I sat down at the computer and opened job sites. Dozens of law firms were looking for paralegals. Small salary, long hours, routine work, but it was a job. By the evening, she had sent out 20 resumes. Then I went to the car wash, Saturday shift, double pay. Carlos didn't ask me anything. He could tell by the look on my face that it was better to keep quiet. I wiped cars until 10 in the evening. A black sedan, a silver SUV, a red convertible. With each car, she let go of the past. The mother who chose a man over her daughter. Gerard with his insults. Tyler the king in his dirty kingdom. They stayed there, in the big house with the pool. And I went forward. Without a family, without $7,000, but free. And that was the most important thing. At 10 o'clock, Megan picked me up from work. We went to a bar and had a glass of cheap wine. Did it go badly? She asked. As expected. Forget about them. You'll make it on your own. I know. We clinked our glasses. To the future. To what will be, not to what has been lost. The next Monday, I received 3 invitations for interviews. I chose Stevens and Partners, a medium-sized firm specializing in corporate law. Not what I dreamed of, but a start. The interview went well. The next week, I started work. A small office without a window, a mountain of papers, and a boring boss. But I was a paralegal in a real law firm. $7,000? We'll make it. Maybe not in a year or two, but we will earn it. And then I will open my own practice, help people who have been betrayed by their families, those who have been told that they are nobody. Because I know it's not true. Everyone can become someone. Sometimes you just have to start with $1 and a broken arm. 3 years at Stevens and Partners taught me many things. Patience. When a senior partner yelled at me for making a mistake in a document. Attention. One missed comma could cost thousands of dollars. Endurance. 60 hours a week was the norm. But most importantly, they taught me to value every dollar. The paralegal's salary was twice as much as the car wash. But after rent, food, and transportation, there was not much left over. I saved $300 a month. In 3 years, I saved $11,000. Not 7, as I had planned for my own practice, but progress. On that Tuesday in July, I was sent to the court to deliver documents for the hearing of Morrison versus Redford Development. It was just a normal courier job, nothing special. Senior Associate David Stevens represented the plaintiff in a breach of contract case. The courtroom was half empty. The summer heat was scaring away the audience. I sat in the last row, waiting for a break to hand over the papers. I looked at the audience out of boredom. An elderly woman in an elegant gray suit sat at the defendant's table. Her gray hair was in a bun. She wore pearl earrings, and she stood up straight. There was something familiar in her profile, in the way she tilted her head while listening to the lawyer. The judge called for a break. I walked over to David and handed him the documents. He nodded, immersed in reading. I returned to my seat, about to leave, when I heard, "Shannon? Shannon Hendricks?" I turned around. An elderly woman was looking at me, squinting. Up close, I recognized her immediately. Martha Redford, a longtime client of my dad's. He had designed a country house for her 15 years ago. Mrs. Redford, I blurted out, not knowing what to say. Oh my God, it's really you. I hardly recognized you. You look so much like your father. She came closer, looking at me. I felt awkward in my cheap secondhand suit and worn out shoes. How are you? I heard about your father. Such a tragedy. He was a wonderful man. How is your mom? Fine, I lied. She remarried. I see. And what are you doing here? Are you studying to be a lawyer? I work part-time at Stephen's firm. Her eyebrows shot up. She glanced over at David, who was in the middle of consulting with a client. At Stephen's? The one who's trying to sue me for $3 million for a made-up breach of contract? I was just dropping off some documents. I see. She looked me up and down. Look, I don't have time right now, but here's my card. Give me a call. I want to know how you're doing. She held out the card, heavy paper with gold embossing. Martha Redford, president of Redford Development Group. I took it, not knowing what to say. Be sure to call me. Dash, she repeated, and turned to her lawyer. For a week, I carried the business card in my wallet, not daring to call. What would I tell her? That I was living in a cheap apartment, counting every cent, dreaming of my own practice, which was getting farther away. Finally, on Saturday morning, I dialed the number. The phone was answered after the second ring. Mrs. Redford's office. Hello, this is Shannon Hendricks. Martinez. Mrs. Redford asked me to call. Just a minute. Music on hold. Then a familiar voice. Shannon? I'm glad you called. Can you meet me today? Let's say 2 o'clock at a cafe on Fifth Avenue? Yeah, sure. Great. I'll see you then. I spent 2 hours choosing what to wear. Finally, I settled on the best suit, a navy blue one I bought on sale. She arrived 15 minutes early and ordered coffee, the cheapest on the menu. Marta showed up at exactly 2 o'clock. In a summer dress and a hat, she looked like she was from a magazine. She sat down across from me, ordered an espresso and a salad. Tell me about yourself, she said without introductions. Everything that happened after my father died. I don't know why, but I did. About my mom and Gerard, about the beatings, about running away, about the car wash in college, about the loan rejection, about working at Stephen's firm. She listened without interrupting, only occasionally frowning. So Stevens is paying you money to help him scam people, she concluded. That's not true. I'm just doing my job. I know, baby. I don't blame you. But tell me, do you like working there? She paused. Do I like it? Number. I tolerate it, yes. It's a job. She shrugged. Your father didn't think so. For him, his job was a calling. He loved what he did. He was lucky. Lucky? She laughed. Child, luck had nothing to do with it. He chose to do something that set him on fire. You can choose too. Choice takes money. It takes courage to choose. Dash, she corrected. Listen, I have an offer. My company needs a lawyer to handle contracts, support transactions, and work with documents. Not a paralegal, a full-fledged lawyer. But I don't have a license. You will get one. I'll pay for training, exams, everything you need. You'll start as a paralegal, and in a year or two, you'll become a full-fledged employee. The salary will be 3 times what Stevens makes. 3 times. I almost dropped my cup. Why? It came out. Why what? Why do you want to help me? We last saw each other years ago. Martha leaned back, looking past me. Your father saved my company. Didn't you know? I was on the verge of bankruptcy. A big project failed. Investors turned away. Your father not only designed a new complex for half the price, but also introduced me to an investor, a friend of his from college. This project was saved by Redford Development. Dad never told me. He was a modest man. When I offered him a bonus, he refused. He said that the work itself was a reward. I am indebted to him. And now I see his daughter, a smart girl with a law degree, wasting her talent in a stuffy office. What would your father say? I knew what he would say. Princess, life is too short for a boring job. I need to think about it, I mumbled. Of course you do. But don't think too long. The job won't be open forever. She put a business card on the table, another one with a direct number. Call me when you decide. And Shannon, your father would be proud of you. To survive what you've been through and still be a decent human being is a strength. I didn't sleep for the next 3 days. I weighed the pros and cons, stability versus opportunities, the familiar versus the unknown, fear versus hope. On Thursday, I handed in my resignation. David Stevens was outraged. After all I've done for you, I taught you, gave you a job, and you're going to Redford? To our opponent in court? The case is already closed, I reminded him. Martha won. The court declared the lawsuit groundless. I don't care. It's a betrayal. Betrayal. I knew what real betrayal was. This was not it. On August 1st, I started work at Redford Development. The office is on the 20th floor, overlooking the whole city. My office is small, but it has a window. A real window. Marta personally showed me around. This is Brenda, the chief lawyer. You will work with her. This is the accounting department. This is the sales department. This is the project department. And this is the most important thing, the coffee machine, a real Italian one. The team received her warmly. Brenda, a woman in her 40s with red hair, turned out to be a great mentor. Marta told me your story, she said over lunch. Good for you for not giving up. They appreciate that here. The work was challenging but interesting. Lease agreements, purchase and sale agreements, investment agreements. Each document is a puzzle that needs to be put together correctly. I plunged into it. Marta monitored my progress. Every week she invited me to lunch, asked me questions, gave me advice. She was demanding. She did not forgive mistakes. But she was also fair. She recognized successes. You're too insecure, she said after 3 months. You hide behind documents. Clients need to see an expert, not a scared rabbit. I'm trying. Don't try, just be. Straighten your back. Look them in the eye. Speak confidently, even when in doubt. Fake it till you make it. I learned. The new suit is no longer secondhand. Hairstyle in an expensive hairdresser. A manicure. Little things, but they gave me confidence. 6 months later, she passed the bar exam. Marta organized a celebration with champagne for the whole office. You are now a full-fledged lawyer. She raised her glass. Here's to your future. The future looked bright. The salary allowed me to move into a normal apartment, a 2-room apartment with a balcony. I bought a car, an old Honda, but mine. She saved $1,000 a month instead of $300. A year later, Brenda retired. Martha called me into her office. I want you to head the legal department, but I've only been working for a year. And you've proven yourself better than the others in 5. Can you handle it? Yes, she said without hesitation. Good. Your salary is doubling. And also, she pulled out a folder. I want to offer you a share in the company. 5% to start. You've proven I can trust you. 5% of Redford Development. I looked at the documents in disbelief. Why? I asked again. Because I see myself in you 30 years ago, a girl hungry for success, ready to work. And because your father would have done the same thing, invested in the future. She signed it without hesitation. That evening, I celebrated with Megan. My friend was as proud of me as a sister. From $1 to a share in $1 million company. She raised her glass. You're awesome, girl. The next 2 years flew by like a day. The company grew, my department expanded. I hired 2 assistants, then 3 more. I negotiated with investors and prepared deals worth millions. Marta gradually gave me more responsibility. She taught me not only law, but also business. How to read people, how to negotiate, how not to show weakness. Remember, she would say, you are no longer the girl who was beaten with a belt. You are Shannon Martinez, co-owner of Redford Development. No one can treat you like a maid. And I remembered. With every successful deal, every negotiation I won, the old wounds healed. I was no longer a nobody. I was someone. In my 3rd year at the company, Marta fell ill. Pancreatic cancer, an aggressive form. She fought, but we both knew that time was limited. I'm leaving the company in good hands, she said during one of our last meetings. You and Robert, her son, will take care of it. Martha, no tears. I have lived a good life. I built an empire out of nothing, and I found a worthy successor. Your father would be proud. She passed away in November, quietly in her sleep. At the funeral, I stood next to Robert. We had become partners and friends over the years. The rain was drumming on the umbrellas, and the priest was reading a prayer. I thought about everything Martha had given me, not just a job or money. She gave me faith in myself, the realization that the past does not determine the future, that you can rise from the bottom. After the funeral, the lawyer read the will. Martha left me an additional 10% of the company and a personal note. Shannon, you have proven yourself worthy of your father's legacy. Continue his work, build the future, help people, and never forget where you came from. Love, M. That evening, I was sitting in my office, a large corner office with a view of the sunset. On the table were photos of my father and Marta, 2 people who believed in me when I didn't. The phone rang. Robert, are you ready for Monday's meeting? The Chinese investors are going to be tough. I'm ready, I answered confidently, and it was true. I was ready for anything. Because I knew the worst was over, and only the future that I build myself is ahead. Saturday morning at the Hall Foods supermarket. I was pushing a trolley between the aisles, choosing food for the week. 3 years have passed since Marta left. 3 years of running Redford Development with Robert. The company was booming. They had just closed a $100 million deal with Chinese investors. She stopped at the coffee shelves, choosing between Colombian and Ethiopian. Life consisted of such small choices now. What kind of coffee to drink, what suit to wear, what restaurant to go to for dinner. Shannon? Shannon Hendricks? I turned around. Dorothy Parker, a former neighbor from the street where I grew up, was standing in front of me. She was old and gray, but still recognizable. Mrs. Parker, I smiled. It's been a long time. My God, you look so elegant. I hear you're a big businesswoman now. Your father would be proud. Thank you. How are you doing? Oh, how are I doing? She waved her hand. Retirement grandkids. Boring but peaceful. Your mom? Poor thing. Something cold moved in my chest. What's wrong with Mom? Dorothy raised her eyebrows in surprise. You don't know? Of course you don't. You don't talk to her. Gerard left her a year ago. He brought home some dancer, Christy or Christina, 25 years old. He told Nancy to get out. The wheelchair became heavy under his arms. Gerard left his mother, after all she had done for him, after she had chosen him over me. Where does she live? I heard my voice as if from the side. In those cheap apartments on Oak Street. I don't remember the number, but it's a house with a green door. She doesn't look good. She's lost weight, aged, and she's sick with something. Diabetes, I think. Thanks for the information. I squeezed out. You're welcome. Say hi if you see her. Although, she's not herself now. She keeps talking about that young woman, cursing her. Dorothy went on with her cart. I stood by the coffee, trying to digest what I had heard. My mom is sick, abandoned, living in poverty. The same scenario as 7 years ago after my father's death. For a week, I tried to put it out of my mind. What do I care? She made her choice. Now she is reaping the rewards. Karma, justice, whatever you want to call it. But the thoughts kept coming back. At night, she dreamed of lying on the kitchen floor. Only now it wasn't Gerard who was beating her, but fate itself. And no one was there to help. On Friday, she couldn't take it anymore. After work, I went to Oak Street. The neighborhood is depressing. Peeling houses, garbage on the streets, suspicious people on the corners. I found a house with a green door and went up to the 3rd floor. The door of apartment number 312 was shabby, with unpaid bills sticking out of the mailbox. She knocked. Silence. She knocked louder. Who's there? A dull voice from inside. It's me, Mom. Shannon. A long pause. Then the click of the locks. 1, 2, 3. The door opened on a chain. In the crack, I saw a face. Gaunt, with deep wrinkles, once blonde hair now gray and tousled. Shannon? I asked, incredulous. Can I come in? She stared at me, as if I were a ghost. Then she took off the chain. The apartment was worse than my basement room 7 years ago. A studio with peeling walls, a squashed couch, a table with 3 legs. It smelled like medicine and something sour. My mother stood by the door in a stained bathrobe. She was wearing old slippers with torn toes. Her hands were trembling, either from excitement or illness. Sit down! She gestured to the couch. Sorry for the mess. I wasn't expecting guests. I sat down on the edge of the couch. Mom sank into the chair opposite, gingerly, as if her whole body was in pain. Dorothy Parker said. I began. Oh, Dorothy! Mom smiled wryly. She likes to gossip. What did she say? That Gerard left. That you're sick. He didn't leave. He kicked me out. There's a difference. He came one day with that whore and told me to pack. He gave us 20 minutes. We lived for 7 years, and he gave us 20 minutes. His voice was bitter, full of resentment, but not at fate, at Gerard, at Christy, at the whole world, not at himself. I'm sorry, I said, even though it wasn't true. Sorry? She laughed hoarsely. You're sorry? You must be happy. You told me not to trust him, not to marry him, and I was stupid. I'm not happy, Mom. I'm just, what? Did you come to see how I live? To compare it to your success? I know you're rich and successful now. Dorothy told me everything. She was silent. What could I say? I have diabetes. Dash, she continued. Type 2. I need insulin, medicine, and I don't have any money. Gerard left me nothing. He signed everything over to that bitch. He didn't even let me take my stuff. You can sue. You have the right. Sue! That bitter laugh again. With what money? Why hire a lawyer? I took out my checkbook. Mom watched me write the check. 30,000. She put the piece of paper on the table. For treatment and living expenses for the first time. She looked at the check as if in disbelief. Why? She finally asked. Because you're my mom. And you're sick. I'm not your mom, I said quietly. My mom wouldn't have allowed what I allowed, I know. For the first time in years, a hint of remorse. But it was too little, too late. Take the money. I stood up. Get yourself treated. Find a normal apartment. Wait. She stood up too, walking unsteadily to the dresser. I want to say, I'm sorry for everything. I was a bad mother. I chose a man over my daughter. I realize now how stupid I was. Mom. No, let me talk. Gerard beat you, and I didn't say anything. He humiliated you, and I played along. I thought he would give me stability, protection. But he gave me only pain. For you then, for me now. I looked at this broken woman and felt nothing. No pity, no anger, no forgiveness. Just emptiness. Use the money wisely, I said, and walked to the door. Shannon, will I see you again? I don't know, Mom. I don't know. She walked out without looking back. She went down the stairs and got into her car. I drove home in silence, without the radio on. I thought about the strange ways of fate. Gerard had abandoned my mom the same way she had abandoned me. Tyler was probably fawning over his new stepmother. For the next 6 months, I lived a normal life. Work, negotiations, deals. Sometimes I thought about my mom, whether she had used the money, found a place to live, or was getting treatment. But she didn't call or visit. Until one December evening, the phone rang. An unknown number. Miss Martinez, this is Detective Riley from the police. Are you Nancy Collins' daughter? Yes. What's going on? Your mother is under arrest, suspicion of arson. Can you come to the station? Arson. My heart skipped a beat. I'll be right there. At the police station, the detective, an elderly man with tired eyes, gave me the details. Mom set fire to Gerard and Christie's house. At 3 in the morning, she poured gasoline on the porch and threw a lighter. The neighbors saw the fire and called the fire department. They managed to put it out. No one was hurt, but the damage was extensive. She doesn't deny it, the detective said. On the contrary, she is proud. She says she took revenge. Can I see her? 5 minutes. They brought her in handcuffs. She sat opposite me, calm, even smiling. There was a sparkle in her eyes that I had never seen before. Hello, my daughter. Mom, what have you done? What I should have done a long time ago. I showed those bastards that they can't treat me like this. You're going to jail. Do you understand? I do. And you know what? I don't care. I'm free, Shannon. For the first time in years, I'm free. Let them put me in jail. They can feed me, they can put a roof over my head, and Gerard doesn't control my life anymore. Mom, I know you think I'm crazy. And maybe I am. But I'm tired of being the victim. I hit you when I should have been protecting you. I let myself be humiliated for 7 years. I'm done. The guard knocked on the door. Time was up. I'll get you a lawyer, I said. No need. If I plead guilty, I'll get a sentence. 5 years, they say. That's fine. I'll read it, think about it. Maybe I'll even write you a letter. Mom, go on, Shannon. Go live your life. I'll finally start living mine. The trial was short. My mom pleaded guilty and received 5 years with the possibility of parole in 3. She looked calm, even happy. When the verdict was announced, she smiled at me and nodded, as if to say, everything is fine. Gerard was in court with Christy. He was even more fat. His face was purple. Christy, a dyed blonde in pink, was chewing gum and playing on her phone. Tyler wasn't there. Apparently, he didn't want to come. She left the courtroom on a cold December day. Snow was falling in large flakes, covering the city in a white blanket. I stood on the stairs, looking at the bustle below. The realization came gradually. It was all over. The family that had never been a family, the ties that kept me tied to the past. Mom made her choice, a strange, crazy one, but her own. And me? I was free, truly free. That evening, I called Robert. Rob, we need to talk about my share in the company. What's wrong? Is something wrong? Nothing. I want to sell and start something new. Shannon, are you sure? The company is booming. You're worth millions. I know. That's why I'm selling. I want to start my own business in another city, a law firm for those who have been betrayed by their families and need protection. A long pause. I see. When? Give me 3 months. I'll transfer the files, prepare everything. Okay. Shannon, you've been a great partner. Mom would be proud. The next 3 months flew by, selling the stake, finding a space in Seattle, hiring our first employees. Megan agreed to move with me to become the office manager. New city, new job, she said. Why not? The last day at the Redford Development office. Boxes are packed, personal belongings are packed. I'm standing by the window, looking at the city below. The phone rings, the number of the prison. You have a call from the inmate Nancy Collins. Will you take it? Yes. Shannon? Mom's voice was calm. I heard you were leaving. Yeah, to Seattle. You should. There are too many memories here. Bad memories. Mom, I just wanted to tell you to be happy. I know I have no right to ask, but be happy for both of us, for all the lives we've lost. I'll try. And Shannon? Your dad would be proud of you. You've become everything I couldn't. She hung up the phone. She wiped away her tears, the first in years. The next morning, I got into the car loaded with boxes. Megan drove ahead in a rented truck. Seattle was waiting. A new city, a new life, new opportunities. As she drove out of town, she passed an old street. The house number 47 was the same. A white picket fence, a well-kept lawn. Only now there were fire marks on the porch. She didn't stop. She stepped on the gas and drove forward. In the rear-view mirror, the city was shrinking, disappearing. Ahead was the road, long, unknown, full of possibilities. And for the first time in my life, I was not afraid, because I knew that the worst was over. The ghosts of the past would no longer haunt me. I turned on the radio. An old song of my father's was playing, something about new horizons and second chances. I turned up the volume and smiled. It was time to start a new life, a real life, mine.